Hey guys, Jim Davis here with NAI Beverly Hinks in Asheville, North Carolina. As promised, I wanted to touch base after I had the honor of sitting in on the NAI Global's Q2 kind of market briefing. They try to do this every quarter, and they generally will focus on a specific sector of commercial real estate. And this time we focused on retail, which is one of the elements of commercial real estate that isn't necessarily shining right now. So, I think it's important to look at signs and watch market changes. Because retail is a sector that is in a pretty substantial revolution right now, for good or bad, however you look at that. But the point is, I think you cannot ignore it. And a good investor, if you're playing around with retail, you need to be on top of this and you need to be planning for the future. And that was essentially the rundown of this. So in this program, Jay Olshansky, who's the president CEO of NAI Global, puts this on. His guest speaker this time was DJ Busch, who's with Green Street Advisors, and kind of the know-all in between all the big players in everything retail world. So definitely a good person with some amazing perspective, both good and bad. So one of the first points that kind of stood out to me that Mr. Busch made was the idea that in his eyes, in the retail sector, landlords have essentially gotten lazy. They've gotten pretty bold with their leasing. They have not been creative. The obvious driver in all of this, what I would call an upset to, as we know, at the retail industry, is e-commerce. The elephant in the room is obviously Amazon. They're doing big things, and they're, investing unbelievably significant money into, as they just announced, the latest thing is they're trying to push from 2-day shipping to 1-day shipping. Stuff like that will revolutionize, and it already has revolutionized the retail industry and completely changed what the future looks like. One of the points Mr. Busch made was the idea that, there's a lot of big players in the brick and mortar side of this industry that are kind of just sitting back and not doing much about, protecting themselves in the long term of these e-commerce players that are coming into the market and kind of taking over. So that was his first call was, if you're a landlord, this is real. This is happening right now. You need to step up and get creative. I also found it kind of, interesting. One of the few large retailers out there that's essentially trying to fight back and doing some pretty creative things to do it is Walmart. And you never thought I'd be sitting here praising something Walmart's doing, but they are. They're one of the few outlets out there that are trying to come up with creative ways and doing a good job. Whether that be, for instance, I know they're doing little projects like, you can order online, but if you want to return, they offer some sort of incentive to return it to the store. Lots of times that can be a notable discount for, returning it and then shopping for something further in the store. So little things like that, people, the landlords and retailers on that larger scale that are brick and mortar need to find ways like that to try to get people back in their stores and still create an incentive that says, look, I've got a reason to go to the physical store rather than just shipping it via UPS back or whatever it may be. So retail is not dead. Don't take what I'm saying as the traditional shopping in a store is going to be gone forever. It's not. Not in our lifetimes or children's lifetimes. Because the reality is, there still is a draw to that sort of thing, to a physical presence and the consumer's need for now. Another point they made was, retail is down and has been down for a little while now across the entire United States and world in general. And then, also additionally important is in all types of markets. So we're talking about primary markets, we're talking about secondary, tertiary markets. The numbers are down the whole way across there. So we're seeing something kind of interesting, which is essentially a mini recession of retail. While a lot of our other industries are doing really good still, we've got this kind of mini recession within the retail, and it's, you know, primarily caused by these outside e-commerce factors, not something else, you know, economically. Comments kept going back to Amazon. As I said, the elephant in the room here. They're doing all these major investments. The big question in kind of everybody's eyes in the retail world is this sustainable for Amazon? So right now, the overall idea is, with the investments they're doing to increase infrastructure and this ability to the future, you know, one-day shipping, it's beautiful, it's brilliant. As a consumer, I love the idea, but you know, it's when you took all that cost into factor, it's not profitable right now. And the question is, how long will that idea take to become truly profitable? And will it? So one of the cautions was for retailers and large landlords is, you know, plan your future around this. You know, you kind of need to think about, if this does work, and maybe you own a mall, maybe you own a large plaza, we can't rely on retail like we used to. What happens if we're sitting on a lot of empty retail spaces as a owner investor? And that's just a thought. You know, you need to think about creative reuse of property. So there's already, in markets across the United States, we're seeing people reusing retail spaces that have been retail for the last, you know, 30 years. The landlords are having to get creative just to fill those spaces, and that's something to think about. You know, whether that be flex space. One of the things that came up a lot was the co-work spaces. So this newer idea of co-work spaces are actually doing incredibly well in retail centers. So whether that be malls, plazas, you name it, but these co-working centers are doing really well in those types of locations. So that's something to keep in mind. And then here locally, I mean, a good thing to think about is look at the old Biltmore Mall that became the Outlets. This was an older mall that sat with a lot of empty retail spaces. It was just not doing well. It had a lot of maintenance issues. The investors came in, purchased it, turned it into a open air outlet mall, and it totally, boom, like that, turned it over, and it's still all retail. So it's interesting that something like a structural and visual change and modernization can take that same exact space and totally turn it around in the retail world. So that's something to think about too. And then one of the other things they addressed that also, you know, mirrored what's going on here locally, or the push for it, is malls. So malls are a kind of a unique thing in the retail world that's hurting across the United States. They're just not doing well. It's an older idea of retail, and as most of you probably know, there's been a project proposed that's in the works for the Asheville Mall to kind of turn it into a mixed-use development where it would be a live-work-play situation. There would be residential units in there, some more modern retail, movie theaters, so on and so forth, but really just modernizing it and going with that mixed-use development. There's a lot of opposition to that in Asheville, but it was a good note that, you know, this is something they were saying that is really one of the only things that they think can save malls in the U.S. So reading through my notes here, I still have quite a bit more. I don't want to bore you guys. How about this? Reach out with any questions on the state of retail. A lot of great information I picked up from this. Thank you to the producers of this. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. It's an interesting time right now in the retail world and the effects of e-commerce and Amazon specifically. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have any questions, and talk soon, guys. Thank you.